Disney's upcoming live-action remake of Snow White starring Rachel Zegler has been enduring a long melodramatic backlash that refuses to die. Fans and critics often dismiss Disney's live-action remakes as cash grabs, millennial nostalgia bait that rarely hold up to the craftsmanship of the original animated films. As Disney continues to churn out remakes, the critical discourse has been infected by reactionary content creators who blend anti-woke talking points with fan grievances. And Snow White has proven no exception. While 90s classics such as Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin proved simple enough to adapt to live action, Disney has struggled with older masterpieces like Dumbo, Pinocchio, and seemingly Snow White. After all, these films were made more than 80 years ago, and cultural expectations have shifted. When first announced, the casting of West Side Story star Rachel Zegler as the titular Snow White sparked racist backlash from commentators who believed that Zegler, who is of Colombian and Polish descent, wasn't pale enough for the part, as the princess is described as having skin as white as snow. Zegler acknowledged the backlash in an interview with Variety, stating that she was trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry. Zegler went on to emphasize that Snow White is really a big deal in Spanish-speaking countries and expressed pride at playing a Latina princess. Zegler is known for speaking off the cuff when promoting her films, using blunt humor rather than bland PR speak. She once joked that she took a role in Shazam 2 because she needed a job. While promoting Snow White last year, Zegler made a series of offhand comments in which she playfully mocked the original animation. These comments were recently unearthed by TikTok, sparking a wave of surprisingly fierce criticism from creators who accused Zegler of hating Snow White and having a pseudo-feminist take on the original.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
While speaking to Entertainment Weekly back in December, the West Side Story star said she was scared of the original version, having watched it once and never picked it up again. In a Variety interview from September, Zegler discussed the changes made to the original, emphasizing that it's no longer 1937 and that Snow White was not going to be saved by the prince. And she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. Another interview at the D23 Expo saw Zegler describe Prince Charming, who awakens sleeping Snow White with a kiss, as a guy who literally stalks her. She called that part of the story weird and said they didn't do that this time. Zegler also joked that the scenes featuring Prince Charming could get cut, adding, "Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby." The backlash has been especially heated due to the ongoing debates around representation and diversity in Hollywood. While some argue that Snow White's character should remain as she was originally depicted, white, blonde, and fair-skinned, others contend that modern adaptations should reflect a more diverse and inclusive society. This debate touches on deeper societal questions about race, identity, and how cultural icons are reinterpreted for a new generation. First of all, this incident highlights the recent shift in casting trends in Hollywood, which has sparked controversies over the years. For example, the casting of Halle Bailey as the titular character in The Little Mermaid raised a similar backlash, as the original animated mermaid Ariel was depicted as a white-skinned redhead. Similarly, in the Harry Potter series, in the 2016 play Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, a black actress Noma Dumezweni, was cast as Hermione, a character traditionally portrayed by Emma Watson in the films. Despite Dumezweni's accomplished acting career, there was backlash against her casting, but J.K. Rowling shut down the criticism, tweeting, "Canon, brown eyes, frizzy hair, and very clever. White skin was never specified. Rowling loves black Hermione." Other Harry Potter cast members, like Matthew Lewis, Neville Longbottom, also supported Dumezweni's role. This phenomenon is often referred to as race-reversed casting or photo-negative casting. It's a form of non-traditional casting where characters' races are reversed, white characters played by black actors and vice versa. Originally intended to open up opportunities for more actors, the concept has faced complaints that it dilutes racial differences. The idea of race-reversed casting was first popularized by British actor Sir Patrick Stewart in 1997. As a classically trained Shakespearean actor, Stewart wanted to play Othello, but was concerned about the problematic tradition of white actors using blackface for the role. He proposed an idea where the racial dynamics of the play were reversed. The majority of characters would be black, while Othello, Bianca, Montano, and the servants would be white. This idea, which Stewart later dubbed photo-negative casting, was initially rejected by the National Theatre Company and the Royal Shakespeare Company in the UK, but was eventually embraced by the National Theatre in Washington, D.C. While the intention behind this casting approach was creative, it has sparked controversy, especially when applied to beloved culturally ingrained characters like Snow White. In the case of the Snow White remake, there's also a cultural and historical dimension at play. The original story, written by the Brothers Grimm in 1812 as part of German folklore, depicted Snow White as a white princess. Casting Rachel Zegler, a Latina actress, challenges that long-standing depiction. This has become a heated topic of debate, with some arguing that it reflects a broader effort to break away from white superiority, a concept rooted in European colonialism and white imperialism. In response, many argue for more racially mixed, inclusive storytelling in modern cinema. As a result, the Snow White trailer received an overwhelming 94% dislikes on YouTube, compared to 6% likes, with many critics citing the protagonist's racial background as a major point of contention. However, it's worth noting that characters of other cultures, when cast appropriately, have been met with success. In Black Panther 2018, Chadwick Boseman's portrayal of King T'Challa was widely praised, and his performance, along with the rest of the cast, was celebrated for bringing authenticity to the role of a black superhero. Similarly, in Life of Pi, Suraj Sharma, an Indian actor, brought authenticity to his portrayal of Pi, making the character feel grounded despite the film's fantastical elements. Ultimately, the key takeaway is that the right actor for the role can make a story feel more genuine and relatable. When a character is cast in a way that feels authentic to the story's cultural context, audiences are more likely to embrace it. However, when casting feels forced or misaligned, it can result in the film feeling out of place. Some people choose to blame Rachel Zegler herself for the controversy. While it's true that some of her statements have been disturbing, I believe this is just part of her personality. She comes across as someone who speaks her mind, rather than hiding behind a mask or pretending to be someone she's not. I think she might be a starseed, someone who chose to incarnate in this life with the purpose of stirring up tough questions and exposing deeper issues within society. Her honesty, even if controversial, could be part of a broader mission to help humanity confront its hidden problems. And honestly, it's an honorable thing to risk one's career for the sake of exposing truths that need to be addressed. It's a big sacrifice, and I respect that. Perhaps what people really despise isn't Rachel herself, but the ideas she's voicing. For instance, her comment about Prince Charming lingering around Snow White being stalking, or the notion that women should lead themselves rather than relying on men might seem like toxic ideas at first. But if you take a moment to reflect, would you really find these thoughts completely absurd or unbelievable in today's world? Probably not. Each generation has its own energy, mindset, and cultural lens, and they create art that reflects the values and issues of their time. Snow White was a product of the 1930s, a time when people were more innocent, and love was often expressed in ways we now see as naive, like someone lingering around a person they liked. Back then, this was an expression of affection, not malice. Today, however, our minds are more guarded. We're conditioned to view any kind of uninvited attention with suspicion, often labeling it as stalking because we've grown cold and self-protective. Anyone doing this now would likely be seen as having ulterior motives, which is why Zegler's comment about stalking resonates with modern sensibilities, even though it wasn't meant to be a criticism of the original story. The issue, though, is that we've become so disconnected from the innocence that once defined how people interacted, we now label anything that feels too warm or too close as creepy. This is part of the shift that comes with societal change, the price we pay for materialism and technological advancement. Back in the 1930s, a story like Snow White made sense. Today, it feels outdated, and so naturally, adaptations must reflect the worldview of the present. This could be seen as a consequence of our more cynical, material-driven society. Even biblical stories, like that of Sodom and Gomorrah, which once seemed almost unbelievable, don't feel as far-fetched now when we look at them in the context of our world. From a spiritual perspective, it's important to remember that these views likely aren't Rachel's own spiritual beliefs, but thoughts she has absorbed from the society around her. It's possible she chose this life, with all its challenges and controversial statements, as part of a greater mission, one that involves helping humanity recognize and confront the problems we face. In that sense, there's no real value in attacking her personally, because doing so only adds more hate to the world, instead of focusing on the deeper issues that her statements bring to light. If Disney wants to make a profit without stirring up more controversy, the solution might be simple. Create an animated movie like Mufasa, The Lion King, using CGI, sticking to the original plot, and having actors voice the characters. Alternatively, they could hire animation studios to create a more hand-drawn, anime-style version, similar to the recent Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. One thing is for sure, Disney has chosen the most difficult path with a live-action remake that mixes racial casting. Whether this will be a success or a total disaster is something we'll have to wait and see.